Hello, this is Tyler White. Today we are going to do our three-part video series covering the production of a spindle, a hearthboard, and a bow for a bow drill. This video is going to cover the bow and the socket on the top. Hello, this is Tyler White. We have covered a video on how to make a spindle, a video on how to make a hearthboard. Now we're going to do a video on how to make the bow for a bow drill. The difference between the hearthboard and the spindle with regards to the bow is that you do want something green and flexible. It would be great to fire harden your bow after you've created your first fire. You want something essentially the polar opposite of what you want for your hearthboard and your spindle. So I've grabbed this guy right here. If you can use willow, willow's the best thing I think to use because it grows fast. Just cut it really close to the base where you trim it off and it will grow quickly and replace itself and leave less impact. Ideally, you want an almost straight piece. There's a slight bend right here, so I can make a bow out of this. Or from this bend forward, I can make a bow out of that. Just depends on how you want to do this. The way that you know this is willow, it's got that pointy leaf. It's got a very bitter and acidic taste because it has headache medicine in it, right? I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head again. So what I'm going to do is remove these little sprouts, chop them off. And I kind of curl as I cut. That helps to remove fibers without it binding up. And then when I want to cut and terminate it, I'm going to do a rose cut. I'm using a backwards grip, okay, facing towards me. Put it against my chest and I kind of curl as I cut. This prevents me from flinging and cutting myself and jacking stuff up. So I just cut the fibers on the outside of the stick. Put my knife away, break it. Nice little rose cut. I'll go clean those up in a sec. You want to make it so that no one can tell that you were there. So always clean up when you get done with the stuff that you're doing. This bow is plenty long. I like to make them armpit to fingertip or just past armpit to fingertip for a new person. This is not going to work, so I'm going to remove that first. Make sure I cut deep so that I'm not going to bind up on any chunks of fiber. Okay. Now we got to remove all these little nubbies. They're sticking out. So I'm going to do it the quick way with my hatchet. I like to put off to the side of my body. And if it's not cutting, just slightly change the angle and that will cause it to cut. But we want these knobbies removed because they're going to bind up with the spindle later on when we're running the bow drill. A sharp axe is worth its weight in gold. Okay, so we got the chunky part out of the road. Now let's skin it. This bottom part is good. I really only want that bow to be about this long. I don't want it to be much further than that because it'll become kind of overkill. So let's kill it right there. Again, with the rose cut, we're removing the fibers on the outside so that all we have to do is crack the crunchy part on the inside. Make sure you get any of the pieces that would bind up. I usually do about 2 passes. And there is my bow. Now, I do, it's called an Egyptian bow. That's one of the many ways I was shown, and it's the one that I like the most. You can go with an absolutely straight stick or an almost straight stick and make your bow. In nature, finding a naturally bow-shaped stick is borderline impossible. Because of that, I very much prefer the Egyptian bow, which is an almost straight stick. So the next thing I've got to do is just remove the skin on this stick, and then we'll start processing from there. I try to do that the direction that it grows so that my knife won't catch and go inside of these little knobs when I'm trying to skin it. Again, I'm cutting to the side of my body because I don't want the blade to go into my leg. I'm also kneeling down so that I won't, again, run the blade into my leg. If you run a blade through your femoral artery, basically you're dead. There is no continuance after that. So knife safety needs to be paramount when dealing with stuff like this. Okay, I'm gonna use the back of my knife, take the rest of that cambium off. Cambium being the mid-layer bark. I don't want it to be there as it dries. It's just gonna mess with things. Okay, now there's multiple ways that you can do a bow. One of them is to drill 2 holes in there, run your string through it, and then connect it with the loop on the top and then wrap your string in the bottom. It's kind of adjustable. The other way is to make it into a mini bow, like a bow and arrow. That's what I like to do the most. I'll put my tip up on one side and then I'll put grooves in the other and then just throw a clove hitch and wrap my excess at the bottom. That gives me the ability to kind of squeeze on the bottom and create more tension, or to throw a stick in it and squeeze when it starts to loosen up eventually. So, all right guys, this part has been skinned. Now I need to just finish that last processing of the bow. All right, now for the minute details. You can leave your stick like this and throw some string on it and run with it. I like to clean it up a little bit and make it pretty. I like to clean off the knobs, the little knots and stuff in there. If you cut them the direction that they grow, they'll come right off. Kind of clean them up a bit. Make this thing as smooth as possible, because when I make a bow drill, I plan on using it for seasons. I don't just plan on using it once and throwing it away or burning it. That's a total waste. So I pretty much skinned down my willow stick. Before you start cutting, decide where your string's gonna go, okay? There's a natural bend in this. The heavy part's in the back right here, and it kind of goes a little funny right there, so I want to take this last little back off. This illustrates why it's better to start with a longer bow, then as you go along, cut it to whatever you want it to be. Don't split. All right, now I got my stick there. So now I'm gonna start cleaning it up. So I know that it kind of arches like this, which means I'm gonna want to run the bow like this, so that that spindle is walking along here. So having said that, I can turn this and decide that I want, clean these up. I want my tip to go like this. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put an angle like this. And then on the other side, I'm gonna put a similar angle. Kind of cut it straight and then turn it. And then curl that around so that my rope will sit right on that little notch. Okay, now I've got that going on right there. What it's gonna do is it's gonna give me the ability to set my rope right like that with the knot on. I'll just tie a figure 8 or whatever, and that should hold it because it's got that heartwood in the middle, and I didn't take off more material than I needed. And then that's gonna run right down here to this bottom piece, and I split it just a little bit on the bottom, so I'm gonna have to trim even a little more down to clean it up. Otherwise, it's gonna cut or split later while I'm using it. Okay, so there's my bow. I got my tip, I got my base. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make a simple ring that I can do a clove hitch into right here in the base. The way that I'm gonna do that is just using the lever action of my thumb. I'm going to cut small circles around this base. And again, I'm not doing the drill a hole technique because I don't have a drill out here. If you want to make a pump drill or use a hand drill with some obsidian, great. If you got an actual drill at your house, go for it, more power to you. But if you're just out here with simple tools on your own, then this is the way you do it. Now I basically thumb levered in a circle, and I'm just gonna rock on the other side to remove this. And all I'm doing is kind of sliding it as I go. I'm not pushing down, I'm not cutting towards my leg. And it just removes all those little pieces. Just kind of spin it like that. Cleans it right up. And then I'm gonna clean that same way on the other side. And I've got a notch. The very last thing you can do if you really want to do is to kind of thin the bow out and make it a little more springy. The problem with that is if you overdo it as you start to run the bow and it starts to shrink, especially if you don't heat harden it, it's gonna split. So for a beginner video, I'm gonna leave this alone as is. I've got a little loop right here on top. In fact, let's throw our string on real quick and show you how to attach this to the spindle. We've got our bow, we got our spindle, we've got our hearth. Now we just need to attach the string to the bow, and then the last thing that you'll need to do is watch the other video on how to run a bow, or the intricacies of running a bow. Maybe the intricacies of not having a big knot of twine or a knot of 550 cord. Let's take what I need here. All right, so the first thing I want to do when throwing this on my bow is I just tie a figure 8. The way that you tie a figure 8 is you make a loop like this. Short one on your left side, long one on your right. You go around the back of the tree, in front of the tree, and down the rabbit hole. And you're good. I don't care how you make a loop on the tip of the thing, just make a loop. Try to clean up the excess string you may have on the one side. You don't want these things flapping around because they will hang up in your spindle. So I'm going to shrink that down, pull it out here, just clean my knot up a little bit. All right, all that's going to happen there is that's going to go right over the top. If this is too big, it will come off. So let me shrink up my loop just a little bit. Figure out which string is which. All right, shrunk my loop up just a little bit. I'm gonna put that right over the top. Nice and snug, and it's running linearly. Now, all I need to do here is a clove hitch. I don't need all this extra string. Normally, I would tell you don't cut your string unless you need to, because you can wrap a ton of string on the back of your bow drill and use it for other things. I'm gonna cut this right now for the video, but do understand you don't have to cut your string in order to put it on the bow. Now, when I tighten the bottom part of this bow, I have to measure it to the spindle that I've made. If my dynamic rope, which I'm using, which means stretchy rope, if it stretches more, then that means I gotta tighten it up later. If I get a different spindle, I gotta adjust it. The key to running a successful bow drill is consistent adjustments to make sure that everything's correct so that it's like cake, you know, it's like glass running the bow drill. Now I've got my right hand and my left hand. I just scoop this in and wrap it around. That gives me a spindle on the outside of the string. I don't want this thing wobbling on the inside in here, okay? I want it on the outside. So I just right hand, left hand, scoop, and in my case, I want 3 wraps. So that's 1, 2, 3, okay? Now what I'm gonna do, because this is a dynamic rope, again, a stretchy rope, as opposed to a static rope, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna pull it nice and tight right here at the base, and then I'm gonna twist it to about a 45-degree angle because I want this to grip that spindle and not slide on me. So my pinky is marking where that is, okay? I've pulled all of the stretch out of it. I'm gonna take this out, put my thumb there, and I'm just gonna snug it up just ever so slightly. Now I know where I need to go. To tie a clove hitch, I've got my right hand here, my left hand. My right hand is the one that's got the dangly piece. I twist it in towards my body, I drop it over the top. And again, I twist it in towards my body, I drop it over the top. That ties a clove hitch, okay? Once I've got that clove hitch nice and snug, I can either tie more and more clove hitches, or I can wrap this around a couple times and then give it the tuck. What I don't want is floppy string that'll hang up in my spindle later. So I'm gonna wrap this and give it a tuck. And that is my bow. Okay, what I can do with this, let me tuck this one more time. What I can do with this is take my spindle, my hearthboard, and my bow and wrap them around in a nice packing, whatever, what do you want to call it? Packable mode. And basically all I need to do is just tuck that last one in, and that's how I'll pack that around. Throw it in your bag or whatever. I like bow drill kits about a 1/2 to a 1/4 of this size. The reason why I'm showing this large size is it's easier for you all to run something like this. The last thing I want to show you with this bow video is the socket, because we talked about that a couple times. The way that we deal with the socket is this. You either can find natural materials, like I have a cow ankle bone and I have a deer ankle bone. These are great. You can use this little notch, if it's not wood, in your knife. Like some of them, this being micarta, I could remove that leather right there, point the blade away from me, put my spindle right there, and run my spindle like that. There's lots of different options. I like to have a spindle that I carry with me a socket that I carry with me regularly. A natural option is take one of your chunks that you've made, okay? Find a comfortable hand position for it. Choke high on your knife. Just carve a little hole out of the center like that. I'll curve it this way, spin it around, curve it this way. And basically all I'm doing is just creating a little spot for the blade to ride in. Then you want to put something gooey, like a leaf, inside of it, so that when you actually run your bow drill kit, it goes like that, okay? And it will grind that goo up on the inside. So let me assemble this real quick and show you how it works. Pointy, skinny like a pencil on top, fat like a crayon on bottom. 3 wraps, 1, 2. Before I get going too far, I want that below the center mark in the lower thirds. 3, it's a very long spindle. I will hold high here and then twist it and it will pack. Okay, once I get it good and packed, I'm in a good spot. Okay, once it's packed, I can use it. So using the natural thing, I would normally do my burn-in, cut my notch. So let's show you how to use the naturally created socket on the top. All it is a chunk of wood. I grab it like this. Okay, and then I just use that. This is a bad boots to do this with. Okay, let's try that again. okay? So that's all that you need to do to create an upper socket. Throw a slug, a bug, a piece of green something in there. Put it right in the dead center of your hand, okay? And then you can see that's gonna run nice and smoothly. Grab a little lower. And then I would just do my burning now. You do the full length of your bow. And then once my burning is complete, I'll cut a couple notches and bust a coal. As you can see, because I made a really long spindle, I can put this right on my shoulder, give it lots of pressure. See, that pressure is creating some brown down there, okay? And the key is with a socket like this, make sure you have something green on top so it glazes before it burns on the bottom. All right, guys. That has been my series of videos, how to make a spindle, how to make a bow and socket, and how to make a hearthboard. I hope this is valuable to you. In other video, I'll show you how to actually run and do all the techniques with the bow drill. Thank you for watching.